Welcome back to the Get Out of Overwhelm Summit. My guest today is Gina Nieves, and that's Gina, GinaNieves.com, GinaNieves.com. She's going to tell us everything about getting more sales, which means more money from our websites. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted.
Now, you and I have talked a couple of times, and you are just full of great information and really help people tune into what they really need to do on their website. And I know that you have 5 tips, and I just want to go over some of these tips and see if we can really help people not get an overwhelm with their website and really just drill it down and find out the things that are going to make the most difference.
Right, right.
So people can get these tips on your site, and I'll talk about how exactly they can do that at the end because it's a free thing that you're offering. But I want to just start with people have like 6 or 10 websites. It's like you make a new website for every new product you're doing. You have a website because you're interested in dancing, and then you have a website because you sell a product, and then you have a website for your services. So let's start at the basics. Is it still true that you should have like 10 different websites so that you can be seen everywhere, or is it better just to have 1 or 2 websites?
It depends on how similar the services are or the different websites. So, for example, let's say you do business consulting, and part of that business consulting, you do some accounting. They kind of work together. I wouldn't have a separate website for your coaching business and your accounting if it's the same target market. Business owner is going to hire you. But then let's say you also have another website where it's just sharing your pottery that you do with your artist friends.
Right.
Totally different target market. Messaging is going to be different. I would create a separate website. So I would combine it where I can.
Now that's really good information, because the piece I think that's really key here is who's the target market. And of course that just goes back to marketing. Who are you promoting to? Who are you selling to? So that's really good information. So if you have all these different websites, let's say you have a pottery website and your coaching website, do you then need to keep going on both of those sites, or can one just kind of stay static?
It depends where your business is going, right? So if you have a coaching site, for example, and you're not changing your packages, and when you say going, you mean making changes to it?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay. And you're not changing your business model, or you're not changing who you're targeting, then you don't need to make a lot of changes. However, you always want to be testing things so you can improve your conversion rate.
Okay.
That you always want to do.
Okay, conversion rate. So we'll talk about that, because that means taking people that are interested that may come to your site into paying customers. That's what you're talking about with conversion.
That's right. So you should always be not redoing your site. If you get into that vicious cycle of constantly redoing it, that's a problem. But you should definitely be always in the cycle of finding ways to tweak things, and improve things, right, within the existing framework.
So let's start with some basics then. You have a couple websites, but we're going to focus on one website. We're going to talk about how to really make this one website that you're focused on your business, how to make that generate more sales. And you have these 5 tips. And one of the tips, the first tip, is that your primary action belongs on the home page. What do you mean by a primary action?
So you have to think about, before you build your website, you're thinking about, what does my sales funnel look like, right? How do I get a person from being a prospect to being a paying customer? And you should understand what that cycle is like, right? The primary action you want to have on your website is a byproduct of that. Whatever gets that person into your sales cycle, into the buying process, is your primary action. It's what you want the person to do as soon as they get to your website. Or another way of putting it, what you absolutely want them to do before they leave your website.
Ooh.
An example. Let's say you figured out that, if you think about the customer buying process, it's the first thing is consideration, right? It's they're considering, they go to your website for the first time, and they're considering whether or not they should use you, right? Your goal is to get them into the evaluation process. That means you can have their permission to further the conversation. So A primary action maybe if you're thinking about that constantly, and everyone that has a business should be thinking about how to get them from consideration to evaluating, right? And you figured out that your buying cycle is this. Someone goes to your site, they opt into your 3 ways to whatever,
Right.
whatever you're offering, right? And then they get your 3 ways, let's say it's 1 every day, and then on the 4th day you give them an offer and they buy, and that's your biggest conversion rate. Your primary action should be, let me get them to opt in.
And by opt-in, just for anybody that's not sure, that
Subscribe
means
to be on your
subscribe
email.
to something, right?
Get their email address.
Now, you said something at the beginning that this is a process people should consider before they even start their website. I can hear the collective gasp of, is it too late? Because most people already have a website these days, right? Is it, what do we do if we already have a website about our homepage?
Well, then you just tweak it. You say, let's say you don't, let's say you figured out that the people that sign up for your tips, they have a higher percentage of becoming customers than the people that don't, right? And then you add an opt-in box. So if you're using something like WordPress or Drupal, any of the content management systems, that's pretty easy to use. I mean, there are modules you can use. If you get on MailChimp, Aweber, Constant Contact, right, they give you the ability to add an opt-in box, a sign-up box, and you get the person's email address. So you go ahead and make the change. It doesn't mean a complete redesign. Right?
Good. Right. So you can just add an opt-in box. So sometimes I've heard 2 schools of thought on this. Let's just stay with the opt-in box. And I was talking with a client recently who had been given advice to stick the opt-in box at least 2 to 3 different places on her homepage. And I've heard also totally opposite advice, one clear call to action in one place. What do you say?
On the homepage, my opinion is 3 opt-in boxes is a little over the top. Because your homepage shouldn't be that long to begin with, so then it's cluttered. So if on the same screen, on the same frame, you come to the box before you come to your website, before you start scrolling, if they're seeing 2 opt-in boxes, it can be overkill. It's almost better to have the on the first screen when you before you begin to scroll down, 1 large opt-in box with a great call to action. And then if you want, maybe lower down, if you have a longer page, then at the bottom. So I do put like an opt-in in the footer for those people that keep scrolling and reading and things like that.
Okay, good advice. So one at the top before you scroll, which is called above the fold,
Right.
and then another down, way down if you have a long page. Great
Right.
clarification. Thank you.
And then, of course, on your interior pages, you should have it as well.
Okay, so,
Opt-in.
and if you're in WordPress, you could put it in the sidebar or
Exactly.
in your blog post. Okay, great. Now, should you always give something away, or can people just sign up for your newsletter?
I find telling them exactly what they're going to get is better. And I've tested this on so many sites. I just ran some numbers right before I call for a client, for example. And I do this all the time. So what I have found is if you give a specific thing they're going to get, you get a higher call to action on the homepage.
Oh, so not something general like get my tips or get my
Right.
newsletter. So here's my, like on your site, I think it's 5 tips to increase your website sales. It's very
Exactly.
specific.
That works better. However, here's what I have found as well. Once they leave your homepage and let's say they follow you on your blog and they love your content, they don't need any motivation. If you just say, if you want to get, updates every time I post a blog or whatever, if you want to keep getting notified, people will opt in. But that's for people that are heavy bloggers, right? And we're not all heavy bloggers because most business owners, the problem is with blogging is they don't have the time.
Right.
So if you're not going to have the time to be blogging amazing blogs once a week, right? Don't just say, get my newsletter, because you're not impressing them yet, right? Give them a very specific thing.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It makes total sense, and it's really great clarification. And that actually takes us right into tip number 2, which is write copy that influences your target market to buy. Gina, I've written, I think, 2 books. I've written a ton of content. I just don't like writing, and I talk about this with my clients. We need to stick with what we're good at. Do we have to write blogs? Do we have to learn how to write copy? How important is that?
So it's two separate questions. First, with blogging,
Yeah.
don't do it if you can't do it. Like the worst thing is you go to a blog and the last blog post is a year old.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Oh, I think
Like
I'm
an
guilty.
example is I don't blog a lot in the summer
Hmm.
because that's when my son is out of school. And so, you know, that extra time that I would normally use to blog, that I'm not going to blog. I'm going to be in the beach with my son. So,
Fun.
so I almost wish in the summer I could turn off my blog, but I can't because it would look weird. But so that's true of everyone. If you're never going to have the time to blog, just don't do a blog, right? If you're going to blog once a month, that's fine. Just blog once a month. If you hate writing and it's going to torture you and it's going to drain your energy when you could be focusing on something else, don't do something that's going to drain your energy. It's just not good for your business.
Right.
However, in terms of writing copy for your site, you got to have good copy. You know, I mean, it just, you got to have good copy. It's copy, to me, that's good. It's not that it sounds beautiful, not that it has great prose, right? It's copy that really connects with your target audience. So make sure that your messaging connects. If you don't like to write, what I tell people is hire a copywriter. But it's your responsibility, though, to explain what you offer to the copywriter, and then tell them what your brand is, and then tell them what appeals to your target market. A good copywriter can take that information and write the right copy.
Okay, and we're back to target market. It just keeps it just keeps coming back to that, and I think really the more time, what I hear you say, and also what I find true with my clients, is the more time we really spend learning who our target market is, and as we grow in our own businesses, that often changes, and
Absolutely.
and so we do need to keep in touch with that and make sure that we're listening to what our target market wants from us as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've heard you say somewhere at some point is like it's really important to understand your target market, right? Like
Yeah.
your marketing archetype that I know you talk about because you've consulted me on that.
Yeah.
I have a that you've consulted me on that yourself, right? So it's really understanding that person, and the best way to do is just survey them, ask them,
Ask
you know.
them. Right. And listen. And
Listen.
listen. Off track a little bit here, but I think so often we know what our clients need, that we make it all up in our head and then we forget to listen. And so what I really hear you saying, which I love because it's part of what I talk about as well, is you've got to really connect with what they want, not what you think they need.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other thing about target market that I've learned, and I learned this a few years into being in business, is everyone that can buy from you is not your target market. Okay? Your target market is your ideal customer.
Talk about that. This is so
Because
crucial.
and this makes me like crazy because I spent the first few years of my business thinking, okay, anyone that needs a website is my target market.
Right, of course.
And then a lot of projects were not profitable, okay? Or a lot of customers, a certain type of customer, not a lot, a certain profile of customer would make me crazy and stress me out, right? And then there was this other niche group that was both profitable. I could do a great job. They were happy. I'm happy working with them. I realized that's my target market. Not everyone who needs a website is my target market. Now, when someone contacts me about a website, it's not just them figuring out they want me. It's like dating. I'm figuring out if I want to service them. Because I have a criteria for my ideal customer.
Oh, do you lose business that way?
I don't, because here's what happens. I'm sure I do in terms of I turn away business that probably would have hired me. But what I find is when I'm dealing with my ideal customer, I have more energy, I'm more creative, I'm making more of a profit, I'm happier, I'm making them happier. At the end of the day, my profit margin's bigger, and they're referring me to people because they're so delighted with the services. So I'm getting a lot more referrals now
Wow.
than when I was servicing everybody and anybody. You know, I thought having a lot of clients was important, and I didn't focus on the quality of the clients.
Oh,
And when
I
I
love
began
this.
to zero in on that, now I have quality and quantity because I've gotten so many recommendations and referrals from people. So
How do
now
you,
the target market is that ideal customer.
I love that. So how do you turn away business? How do you say to somebody who wants to hire you, sorry, you're not in my target market?
I say graciously. What I do is I either A, recommend them to someone else. I'll just say, you know what, I love what you have to offer. This is great. I edify them. I don't want to make them feel bad. And I say, but it's probably not a good fit for me, but here's someone that can help.
Oh, it's not a good
So I
fit for me.
refer them. I'm honest. I don't tell them it's not a good fit because I think that,
You're
not
going to be a crazy maker.
or you're crazy, or it's not going to be profitable. But, so I don't want to offend anyone. Because you know what? They may not be a good fit for me, but they may be a great fit for someone else.
Absolutely. And what I've noticed is the more we do focus in on who we love to do business with, the other people just kind of go away more and more. It's like we start attracting the ones that we know are a good fit. It's, it's that whole law of attraction or energy, vibration, woo-woo stuff, right? It works.
And then your energy is great, and you're just happier. And you leave work and you go home and you're still happy.
Ah, love
Because
that.
who wants a cranky mom, right?
Yeah, right.
Had a bad day.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me.
So let's go to tip number 3, because here's another thing. It's about the visuals. So if you have an e-commerce site, and most of us have something to sell on our website, you got to have good pictures. And can you just go get free pictures? Do you have to take your own pictures? If you take your own picture, do they have to be professional? Talk about the photos.
My theory is you either get professional pictures or you get stock photography, unless you happen to be gifted with knowing how to take good photos. And some people are really good at taking good photos. So what you don't want to do is take the photos yourself, or have your friend take it who has no sense of how to take photos, and have bad photos on an e-commerce site. Especially if you sell a physical product, it really should be professional, because they're making a buying decision based on the presentation of that product.
Right.
So you don't want a bad photo. And we've built a lot of e-commerce sites in my company, and I cannot believe the photos I get from customers. Well, I literally tell them, I'm not going to do this to you. You need to go get better photos. They're too dark, they're blurry. And when they make that shift, their sales go up.
Wow. Okay, so that one shift of getting good professional photos translates directly to sales, is what I hear you say.
Absolutely.
So
if you have a product.
And so professional photography is expensive, right?
It can be. I mean, you can get, depending on where you live. If you live in New York City, it is expensive, right? I lived in New York City most of my life, but like now I've moved up to the suburbs, it's a little cheaper. So you can get some photography done for less, If you don't sell a physical product and you're selling a concept or service, then stock photography is very cheap. You go to, iStock Photos, Shutterstock, there's a ton of sites now. And for $20, $30 a photo, you get yourself a nice photo.
Okay, good. And do you recommend buying photos as opposed to using the free ones out there? Does it matter? Can you just use the free ones?
Doesn't matter to me as long as it's a good photo.
Okay.
I use all of them.
Okay. I know that for me, I've used both. I have bought photos because sometimes there's just a photo that I know represents exactly what I want to say.
Right.
It's the right photo, so I buy it. But for Facebook and blog posts, I use a lot of free photos.
Yes, totally. I do too. I don't pay for every blog post photo. It's expensive.
Yeah, good. Okay. And then do you need a professional photo of yourself on your website as well? Or should you even have a photo anymore of yourself? Or where does that fit in?
Yes, I'm an advocate of having a photo of yourself and having a nice photo. Ideally professional. If you don't have a professional one, just a really nice one. Good lighting. You just look nice. It's who you are. And you definitely want the photo to represent you. I remember I got photos done of myself, and they made me look like a glamour queen. A lot of makeup, a little too sexy. And if anyone knows me, that's not my style.
Oh.
So people would meet me and be like, she's nothing like her photo. So the next time I said, I need a more corporate photo. Now my current photo is too corporate because I'm not really corporate either.
Oh.
So now I'm going to get another photo shoot. I'm going to get it right. I'm professional, but I'm down to earth, and this is who I am. So I'm trying to find that balance. So it's getting the right photo, whether it's professional or not, just making sure it's who you are and it presents you in the best light. I find the professional photographers do a better job.
Yeah, absolutely. What's cool about that is even you with like this huge business, and I think you brought in, I can't remember, $30 million worth of sales in the
Yes.
last couple of years or something through your
Mhm.
websites. I mean, it's this huge number. You've built hundreds and hundreds of sites, maybe thousands by now, right? And even you are changing your photo. It's like you're learning and growing and getting the next,
Yeah,
the next
absolutely.
thing.
Absolutely. You know
Yeah.
what's the hardest thing to do is judge yourself, like your visual. You're better at your clients' visuals
Right,
than
right.
yourself. It's like, okay, I look good. I look, really glamorous. And then, well, you're not really like that, Gina. So change the photo. Okay, I'm going to be corporate. Gina, but you're not real stuffy corporate either. It's like, So,
And so your
anyway,
website should also have that same branding or image that
yes,
represents who you are.
exactly. Your website needs to have, right, exactly.
The same thing. So
Right.
if your website is real corporate and yet you work mostly with artists, it's not going to be a match.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing I say about branding in general is if you know who your ideal customer is, your website needs to appeal to them. Because usually your ideal customer is attracted to you. So by virtue of that, if you're just authentic on your website, and really be who you are, your branding should match. Do you know what I mean? It should all work together. So it's not like putting up a website with a branding that doesn't match you, right?
Right.
Ideally, you know who your ideal customer is. They love you. You love them. So you understand the messaging that works for them. You understand the visuals, and then your website should represent that. And that's true if you're doing sales pages. Like I've seen websites that look one way, and then you go to the sales page, and it's a completely different brand.
Oh,
And now, if
yeah.
you're trying out a new target market, that's fine. But if it's the same target market, and your website's working for you, your sales page, not that it has to look like your website, but it should have the same branding.
Same branding, meaning should appeal to the same audience.
Right, exactly.
So when we talk about branding, does that mean all the colors should be the same? The logo should be the same?
To me, branding is everything. It's the personality of your business, right? So it's what you're saying, your copy. It's your photography. It's the colors. It's do you write a lot? Do you write a little? For example, actually after working with you and going over the marketing archetype, I kind of refined my ideal customer. So now I have the type of customer we talked about in our consulting. I have more of those customers thanks to you. So what I found out is that they don't want to read anything. They prefer video. They don't have time. These executives, they're making decisions in minutes, if not seconds, and they're not going to click away from the home. They're just so busy. So now I'm hiring a video guy to basically, I'm going to create a where I would send this specific target market to, and it's me speaking real quick in less than a minute, try to convey how I can help their business.
Wow, I love that. That's
But
really
they don't
cool.
read.
Yeah.
But I have some customers that will read. They
Right.
just want to read everything. They want to read testimonials. They want to, and I love that because that's more me. But I have to make that shift now that I'm shifting a little.
So from marketing archetype, because you brought it up and we've talked about this, you are staying within your archetype for a lot of your sales, but now you're also going to some of the more advanced things, which is your buyer archetype and what are they looking for, and shifting to really attract back to your target audience. So it
Right.
all
That's
comes
right.
around. Yeah. So let's go on to tip number 4, which is optimizing your search engines. And that's known as search engine optimization. People know it as keywords
Yes.
but it's so much more than that. But I want to start at the beginning because there's this big brouhaha right now because Google has gotten rid of its keyword tool. And so many of us would put in words to try to find keywords and key phrases that our target market's looking for.
Right.
If you don't know what it is, forget it because it doesn't exist anymore.
Got rid of it.
And if you know what it is, then you probably know it's gone. So what's the replacement for that, Gina?
They have Google Keyword Planner.
Okay.
But here's the thing with Google, and this is about money. You only get access to it if you use Google AdWords. So that's a pay-per-click campaign.
Right.
So before, you didn't need Google AdWords. You didn't need to have a campaign and paying Google for clicks to use the keyword planner tool. But you can set up an account and not activate the campaign. I hope this is like okay for me to tell people for Google. I hope they don't block me, but you can go set up an account with Google AdWords, act like you're going to set up the ads, and then go to in Google AdWords, there's tools and analysis link. In there now there's a Google keyword planner.
Okay.
And you can have access to it.
So I would presume that Google would love people to do that, because when you're that far into it, and then Google says things like, "Wow, you can reach 17,000 people in the next hour," that you're more likely to click anyway. So
that's the replacement for the Google keyword tool, is the keyword planner.
Okay. Is there anything else out there? Like, does Yahoo or Bing have something, or are there any other tools in case we don't want to go through that whole process of setting up an ad
Yes,
campaign?
there is. But here's the thing. Bing and Yahoo have a lot less traffic, search traffic. So you always have to come back to Google, no matter what. Because Google's keyword tool, Yahoo's tools, they're based on their search data, not Google's search data, right? So they don't know, Yahoo doesn't know what's happening in Google. And typically, and this is a consistent number for my customers, they get 80% of their traffic, web search traffic from Google. So if you exclude Google, you've excluded the lion's share of your search traffic.
Wow.
So you almost have to use their tools. But there's also Google Trends, which is still available.
Okay, so
And Google Trends is, let's say I put in, I sell underwater cameras. I don't know why I'm picking that, but anyway, I sell underwater cameras, and I go and I type it into the Google. If you just Google Trends, you'll get it. And I type in underwater camera, and it gives me a chart, and it shows me how that word is trending. How many people are searching it, and it's a trend. So it'll show me like for the past year. So obviously for underwater cameras, in April and May, as people are getting ready for scuba diving in the summer, right? You have a big peak on that word. So everyone should use that anyway, because there's certain times of the year where your service is more in demand, and you want to know that 2 months in advance so you can plan for that, right?
Right. And also know when to take vacation if your business is going down.
That's right. Like if you're a marketing consultant, the fact of the matter is that in September and in January, you're in high demand, because people are getting back from the summer and they're thinking, okay, what am I going to do to ramp up my business? Right? So they want a marketing consultant.
Right.
In January, it's a new year, what am I going to do to ramp up my business? So if you look at Google Trends, marketing consultants, sales consultants, they're spiking. The end of August, beginning of September, and then January.
Right.
So you really want to ramp up for that. That's when you want to start blogging. So if you don't have a lot of time to blog, blog in December so you're showing up on the search engines to get ready for that pickup in January. So that's how you use the Google tools. It's not just what keywords, but when are those keywords really active.
Okay, so if I'm going to blog in December to get ready for my own personal, consulting, to show up in the search engines in January, this goes back to your tip number 4. How do I optimize? Am I stuff, it used to be called stuffing with keywords. We know that you don't want to stuff with keywords, but how do you have that balance of writing for your audience and writing for Google?
You want to write for your audience first, because if you get them there and you turn them off with keyword stuffing, it's not a good thing. And now Google doesn't reward you for that anyway. They penalize you. But what you want to do is make sure, let's say the keyword is marketing consultant for women. Let's just say this keyword, okay? It's easy to put that in your copy, as a marketing consultant for women. I find that, I was offering marketing consulting for a few women, and you know what I mean? It's easy to put that in your copy. What you don't want to do is make it sound unnatural. So I always say, when you optimize for the search engines, do it for the human first. It has to flow. There's always a way to kind of stuff those keywords in there. And you don't want to stuff them all over the place. If you just do it twice, and the title of your blog post or your copy, your page is very important, because Google looks at that title and then they look at the copy and they look at the keyword density. If you have it all over the place, they know what you're doing, and then you get penalized, so you got to strike the balance. But if you have it in your title, Like, 5 things I learned from um, offering marketing consulting this year, whatever.
Right.
And then in the copy, you say it once or twice. I think you're good.
Okay. And just focus, what I hear you say, I think, is focus on like one keyword or one key phrase per blog post. Don't like
Yes,
go all over the
I do
place.
that. I do that. And if I did like 2 blog posts in a row about email marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said to me, why are you writing about email marketing? And I said, well, email marketing is going to start trending soon. So I want to make sure I show up for email marketing consulting. So I did 2 blog posts back to back. In one, I talked about subject lines.
Mm-hmm.
And in another, I talked about, I don't remember right now, but it was another topic related to email marketing.
Right. So let's talk about subject lines, because I especially now that so many people are reading email on their phones and tablets and devices. I don't have mine here, but basically, if the subject line isn't catchy, you may not even open it, because that's what you're looking at on your phone or on the computer. Comes across the subject line. How do you write a catchy subject line?
So if you understand your customers' messaging and your target market's messaging, and you've surveyed them, and you know where their pain points are, I use those words in the subject line. And then I always A/B test. So if I know, for example, one of the pain points of my customers is that this is actually a common pain point. Someone hires a designer and they disappear on them.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm sure you've heard this.
I've heard that.
Right. If I send out an email to prospects, not current customers, but to prospects, and it says, tired of disappearing designers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Find out how to take care of that, or whatever it is, And I discuss that pain point in the subject line. They tend to open it more. But there's different subject lines you should try. If you're emailing people that are already on your list and they've been on your list for a while, you want to segment your list. So you may send a different type of subject line when you segment to the people that have been on your list for a while. So you may want to say something very specific, like with their name in the subject line. Like when if I get an email from you in the beginning and I barely know you and you put my name in the subject line, I'm thinking you're going to spam me and I'm going to delete it.
Right. It's a bit too
much. But if I've been on your list, like I've been on your list, Michelle, so if you put my name in the subject line, I'm going to open it, because I'm really thinking you're writing to me. Because I'm on your list. I get all of your stuff already for a long time.
Right.
So anyone that and all the tools you can do this, anyone that has been on your list for a while and they open at least 30% of your emails, try doing the subject line and see if you get a lift.
So we've talked about all these things, Gina. We've talked about, everything you can do to increase sales on your website. I want to get to your final tip. And just to remind people, they can get these tips if they go to GinaNieves.com, GinaNieves.com, right? And sign up. You'll get these 5 tips with the explanation of how to increase sales on your website. So I want to know, your 5th tip is keep improving your website. I know that you say don't redo it all the time, but what does improving mean? You
should be doing A/B testing. Well, you should be doing more than A/B testing, but at minimum, A/B testing. An example. So we talked about having a people subscribe to your email list, for example.
Right.
So let's say you try get tips on improving sales on your website, and only 8% of the people that go to your homepage opt in. What you want to do is then try another one. So I actually did that, and I said top 10 reasons, or top 5, right? And then you see now 12% of the people that come to your homepage.
Oh, wow.
Now, you don't do it for one day, because unless you have a ton of traffic, right? Like if you get 1 million visitors, that's great. You can do it for one day. But you can do it for a month. Try testing. The other thing is colors of your opt-in buttons or your call to action buttons. If you have products, and a lot of people put a lot of products on their homepage, try just 2 products on the homepage and see what happens. Just to see if a product sales increase just because it's on the homepage, or is it really because people like that product more? Do you know what I mean? There's a difference.
Right.
Because I've had people come to me and say, this is my best-selling product. And I said, well, we don't really know if it's because people like it more because it's the only one on your homepage, right? So maybe
Right.
that's why let's test another product and see what happens. So you want to understand why people are taking the action they're taking on your homepage by testing. And you would just want to test conversion. The same thing for your contact forms. Your contact forms. You want people to especially if you offer type of service where people are not going to buy on your site, they really need to call you or fill out a form. Check and see the difference of how many fields, or
Oh.
what you're telling them. I have a customer that just by taking out one field, more people filled out his contact form.
I love this because it's back to what you do in marketing generally, which is if it doesn't work, quit doing it. And
That's right.
right, and then test something new. And I love that you're applying
Yeah.
these things to the website. It sounds like there's a lot of fiddly work, and this is a get out of overwhelm summit, not get into
That's
overwhelm.
right.
So number one, people can hire you and you'll do it for them, or you'll
Right.
teach them how to do it.
Right.
But this isn't all something that needs to happen at once. You can do these in bits, right? Talk about that
That's
because
right.
it
I mean,
sounds like
that's
there's
right.
so
You
much.
you don't want to be overwhelmed. The other thing is you don't want to test too many things at the same time because then you don't know what the real measure of success is because was it this that did it or this, one thing at a time. So changing the language on your opt-in takes, less than a minute. So do that 1 month. I mean, that takes less than a minute. Adding another field to your contact me form or taking one out, really, if you use any of the CMS tools, takes really a minute. You take it out and see the difference,
Wow.
things like that. If you have an e-commerce site and you have one of those shopping carts that are all automated, your featured photo takes less than a minute. So we're not talking about redesigning and let me do a new logo and a new banner. We're talking about basic things. At least once a month, you should have a goal. What am I going to test this month?
I love that. That's
And
easy.
all of these things take less than a minute.
Thank
If
you.
it's taking you 3 hours to do, hire someone.
Like you. Like you. Okay, great. Now, this is the Get Out of Overwhelm Summit. What do you do to stay out of overwhelm in your own busy business?
One thing is I surround myself with really good people, and I've learned that the hard way. So I have a team of people that work with me, and they're all really good at what they do, so I don't have to micromanage them. So that if I am right now on this video call with you, Michelle, my company is running. So I don't want a situation where I'm off this call and now I'm backed up, right?
Right.
Things are being taken care of. So that's the one thing. And if you don't have employees, it's get a good coach. It's get a great babysitter. I mean, whoever is in your life, have exceptional people around you. So that's the biggest thing. Now, in terms of working with customers, not to be overwhelmed, is try to focus on customers that you like, people that you genuinely enjoy being around. Because the worst thing is energy drainers.
Right.
You start your day off in a meeting with someone that sucks the energy out of you. That affects your entire day. You're completely overwhelmed. It like sets you on a course that's just so bad. The other thing is have a plan. Like I said about data, of A/B testing.
Right.
If you hear someone say these are 10 things you should test, don't think you have to go and test all. Say in January I'm testing this, in February I'm testing this. Do you know what I mean? Like pace yourself. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
Good. Having a business is not a sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
So pace yourself and be realistic. Same with blogging. If you set up a blog and you just can't blog, then don't put a lot of emphasis on your blog because you can't blog. Don't stress out.
Right.
So that's the key. So me, it's about pacing myself. It's really about just enjoying my work.
Gina, are you on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and Tumblr and Instagram? And what I hear a lot from people is there's just so much of social media. What do you recommend?
I recommend hanging out where your target market is.
Here we go. Of course.
I'm saying where your ideal customer. I'm going to say that.
Right.
So a lot of my customers, for whatever reason, are not on Pinterest. So I set up a Pinterest account, realized that every time I ask my customers, my ideal customers, what's your Pinterest? They said, I'm not on Pinterest. I don't hang out on Pinterest.
Right. So you stopped doing it.
A lot of them don't even like using Twitter. It just too fast for them. I do Twitter, don't do a lot of it. Okay? So I hang out in LinkedIn and I hang out on Facebook. And if one day I decide to have more time on my hands to do more, great. But it's bringing me the business I need, just those two social media platforms. And actually, a lot of my customers are now beginning to use Google Plus a lot.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
Yes, and that's recent.
Yeah.
And now a lot of them, instead of Skyping me, they want to Google Hangout me.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to start setting up a Google Plus strategy for me. So that's part of being overwhelmed. You don't have to do everything. You know, it's better to do like 3 platforms, social media platforms, and do them really well than do 5 and 10 and just be overwhelmed.
Right. And do what comes naturally and, as I would say, in your marketing archetype too.
That's right.
So the last question that I've asked everybody is, if you had an extra $1 million to give away or to share or to support a charity, where would you give it and why?
I wouldn't give it to a charity, but I would pay for as many college educations as I can.
Wow.
I would personally pick kids, and I would just pay for their 4-year. That's what I would do.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Gina, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to tweet this interview out on Twitter, so we'll see you there, and Facebook and everywhere else. Again, you can find out these 5 tips and more from GinaNieves.com, Nieves.com, and you can find Gina on Twitter and Facebook. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Have a good day, Michelle.
Bye, Gina.